Hey there, I'm McAllister with OC DIY, and today I just want to do a kind of a recap over my first 2 weeks of using Godot, and just talk about what it's been like learning a game engine and how that time has gone, whether it's been fun, not fun, whether I think Godot has been good or bad, and just some general comments as somebody who is new. If you've been thinking about getting into making games, this is my experience as someone who is totally foreign to coding and just wanted to get into it. The most I had in coding was one class in high school where I learned basic coding language. I don't know if anyone's ever used for anything, but it was fun. So Godot, or Godot 4.0 is the one that I'm using, is a pretty fun software program. It's pretty simple to get in there and understand the basics. Now, in fairness, I have tutorials up on the channel from when I wanted to get into Unreal Engine 5. Right here, you'll see I did one over like meshes and why are you not colliding? And I was just going over some basic things that I was learning how to do because I wanted to make a game. Coming to Godot, I decided I'm going to make a 2D game because it just felt like, if I can simplify one dimension, then maybe it'll be easier. I've also been playing a lot of Street Fighter, so I just like the 2D perspective right now. So with that being said, the game I tried to emulate because I looked at a tutorial and they said the best thing you can do is emulate a game, and then that makes it easier to just kind of know what you need to do. Because when you go play that game, you can see it. You need to implement that feature, X feature, this feature, and all that sort of thing. So how's that going? Well, I decided to do Pico Park, and that game is a pretty simple game, very easy graphics, all pretty monochromatic. There's only a few colors in the game, and the sprites are very simple, and it's just a platformer. The only difference is you do it with your friends, so it makes you angry when things mess up. That being said, it's gone pretty well. I've enjoyed it. Here's, I've got time-lapse probably playing right now of all the things I've been doing in there. What I've been doing as far as code goes, for the most part, is I would say equivalent to if you wanted a Swiss Army knife that also had a new attachment for like a bike pump, and you just duct taped a bike pump to your Swiss Army knife. That is about how I've gone about creating a game. It's not very pretty. It's not very functional, to be quite honest. The game works. The movement doesn't feel weighty enough. I'm probably going to have to learn how to do that. But a lot of this code is just strapped together. Like I'm holding on by my bootstraps trying to get this stuff to work together. And I have to say that when it comes to Godot, one of my major gripes is I've tried to learn Python and I've tried to learn other languages in coding before. I thought it'd be fun to do. But the problem is, it's just like I don't know how to Google a question for coding. And I thought that, this is going to be something that I'm going to struggle at, and you have to get over that initial hump of just absolutely F yourself, like learning the F chord on a guitar takes weeks. But once you get over that kind of week or 2 weeks, eventually your brain kind of figures it out. You don't have to do a lot of that work. You just put in the effort and your brain will kind of auto-correct you. And next thing you know, you'll be doing the bar chord and you'll forget why it was ever difficult, right? Well, it's been a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, and the coding language still makes no sense to me. I don't get when a period should be added versus when it should just be the function outright. Like I've gotten better, don't get me wrong. I'm able to call functions. I get onReady. I get process delta. I get these basic commands. But when it comes to something that just seems simple, right? If my player touches this block, move the block or give it the same speed as the player, right? That seems super simple. I cannot get it to just recognize when a certain player walks into a box. If I want an NPC to get to an end of an area and that means the player loses, that seems simple, but I cannot get it to function. I've tried making a ton of different games on the side, not here at the office. I've been working on one for a game jam, and dude, I'm just absolutely like flustered at the idea of trying to make a hitbox. I'm trying to like just have a sword swing out, touch somebody, that person does a little animation, and then runs away. All I want it to do, but I cannot figure out how to make this hitbox detect, and then how do I get it to enable right when a player's in it, but not when it's just walking around. These things I thought were so simple are so frustrating because it just seems like I want the idea, like, let me back up here. I'm going to try to do a little description here. Let's just say you want to make some sort of easy 2D character and you want to make a game in which you do one simple thing. Characters come in on the left, characters come in on the right. You just got to walk over and smack them before they cross the screen entirely, right? That sounds like a very simple game. Well, I can say from my perspective, it has taken me at least 3 hours to make the player character. And that is not even fully done. This just means that now instead of just standing there and being idle, now he kind of, wiggles when he's waiting. Now he walks instead of just sliding along. And now when he attacks, he actually goes, whoop, but he still bugs out and kind of holds it out at the end if you're holding an input, and I don't know why. But the attack, now he looks like he's attacking, and I realize that doesn't mean he's actually attacking. And then now I want a script that has my guy walk out from the edge and then start to either walk or run at random intervals. Oh my God, that has taken me so long to figure out. I tried looking at how to do these like finite state machines, but there's this level of coding that you seem to need to know for Godot. Because it's open source, it is super accessible to everyone, but it feels like you needed to come in with some level of understanding beforehand, because otherwise it just really hits me in a way that I don't understand it. Like, it seems simple. If someone's next to me when I attack, then they should take damage. But what line of code is if someone's next to me? Or, okay, I've made an area that they need to be in, but when I go left and right, it doesn't show if anyone's in that area or not. So I needed to only detect, like, I'm going to try to explain this because this is what I'm having an issue with right now. So, like, here's my guy, right? The guy's on the 2D's place. Let me put him on the ground, right? Guy's on the ground. If you hit play on this game right now and you just made this, guy would fall through the ground. Why? Because guy has no collision box. So it doesn't know where his body ends. You have to tell the game. So I tell the game, okay, guy's body is inside this box. So if any enemy touches that, even though his head's here, you ever play a game where you like get shot at and they're shooting somewhere over here and you take a hit even though your head is far away? It's because this gap here that exists still counts as colliding. But theoretically, it's not actually touching what you'd see as your pixel. But the game needs an area to recognize as the body, and this is what I've picked, right? Well, in order to hit someone, right, if he throws out an animation, and that animation involves, his sword swinging out. I'm going to just draw him a sword now. Let's call this his sword. So this sword swings out, right, and is just there. You notice there's no box around it, so now we don't know where it collides. So let's add a collision box. So now there is a collision box in the sword. So if someone walks into that sword, I should be able to detect it, right? Sure, that seems fine. But now let's just say my guy does a very simple act and they turn the other direction. Well, I can get the animation to play that way, but now this box floats here on the wrong side. So I need to figure out what direction my player is going and make the attack come out on that side. Well, now that takes me another hour because I'm like, well, what do I do to make it detect if he's turned? That seems like a simple code. If turned around, then do this. If turned this way, then this. But I don't have a turned function. What I do have is direction. He can move negative, which is toward, the beginning origin of the level, or he can move positive. So maybe I say if detection negative, then deal damage. If detection positive, or detection. If direction is positive, then go this way. If direction is negative, then this way. But it's just these things where like, well, what if you attack while he's idle? Oh, now I have to figure out, okay, or if he's standing still. It just feels like these million things where like there is a smarter way to do it. And if you've ever been in a class with a really good teacher before and you realized how much time they saved you by giving you their expertise, it is just wild how much time I feel like I'm throwing into this furnace of just time disposal on my like off hours where I just want to try to learn something because I cannot figure out the efficient way to do it because I can't Google away. And every time I look up Godot, people that are scripting, they're either kind of at the intermediate level and they're explaining a higher concept and I'm having to learn the roots up. I copy their whole code base and then I get an error back. And I just cannot for the life of me figure out why there's an error. Because it's open source, it's a little bit newer. It could be a bug that I'm experiencing, but I wouldn't know the difference between a bug and incorrect code. So it's really just killing me. It's made me debate a few times whether I should just go to Unity, but I do want to just work on a software that I know if I make all the assets and everything and I put it up somewhere, I have all rights of everything I do. I don't want something ever to happen where I have a legal issue with something that I worked on 20 years ago because Unity's decided to change its thing. Now, I know if I download certain versions of Unity, I can get away with this stuff, and there's a lot of tutorials out. But I just thought Godot was cool, and I put a lot of time into it, and I kind of want to just commit to this as my engine and make it easier this way. Just do it in one and call it a day. And then if I get good at it, it's kind of fun that I'm better in an engine that I feel like is less utilized. And that way I have something at least kind of fun and niche that I can make tutorials on, things like that. The difference between the language that I speak and the language the computer speaks is such a difficult barrier for me to cross that when I try to Google a question, like how do I make a collision box flip sides might be what I look up for that sword problem where if I wanted to go from one side to the other. I can never find it. And when I read GD Scripts documentation, I never once understand what I'm reading. I've looked at it hundreds of times where I've just tried to figure out something. I think if I just commit to reading it, even if I don't understand, eventually it'll make sense. Kind of like reading, who is it, Brandon Sanderson's Way of the Kings. I'm like, who are all these names? What are all these places? I don't understand. But the farther you get, the more you're like, oh, that's what they are. Yeah, that's what that is. I know all these terms now. I'm still so far from that. Like, I get what an array is. I know what a dictionary is. I know what a function is. I can't tell where to find my keywords. Like, I wish there was just a glossary, and they say there's one online, right? If you go to the documentation, that you should be able to just look up the words, but I just wish they put it in plainer text. So there was like a dummy's guide to it. So if you want to move a character, like NPC commands that might be useful, and then just like the name of it, the function, followed by this can be used to make your NPCs walk, or this can be used to move a static body. And it's just like, I don't know where to find these things. And I don't get the difference between a character body 2D, a static body 2D, and, what is the other one? A rigid body 2D. It has these descriptions that just don't make sense to me. Maybe this is how people feel when they first got into using Premiere Pro, the program that I love, but I agree is buggy and weird. If it wasn't so standardized, it should be a trash fire. But I'm so good at it at this point because I've used it for so long, and maybe those words that make sense to me, like time interpolation, just eventually will come to me in Godot. But when it comes to 2 weeks in, I've tried to make about 4 different games, 3 versions of the same game for this game jam. I just kept trying to easier and easier concepts because it kept getting really hard. I wanted to add just the simple. I was like, maybe I'll make it like a Game Boy game. That has to be easy nowadays. Just add a dialogue box, right? That was a rabbit hole I went down for another few hours. I tried to add multiplayer to something that I followed 6 different tutorials, and not a single one of them gave me peer-to-peer multiplayer. The only one that did actually just made it where every time I pressed the space bar, I cloned my character, and until I had 1,000 of them, and it crashed my computer. Wild. I don't know why. As for the positives, that's been a lot of the negatives. I just want to explain that even as somebody who's spent a lot of time on it and considers themselves rather adept at picking up new tools, it's been so difficult. And I just want to say that so that other people know if they want to get into this, it's not all sunshine and roses. There's a lot of videos out there like, this is the best time ever to get into games. It's so easy, blah, blah, blah. And they're not wrong. It's pretty easy nowadays to get into it. Like, the downloading of Godot took 3 seconds, and the starting and having it on my laptop where I can make games on my laptop is crazy to me. The coding is easy. The fact that it's in one window at first annoyed me, but I kind of like it now. That means no matter what device you're on, if you have a single screen, you can make your game. And it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun to mess around and make general concepts, but I'm really only capable of making failed Flash games at this point, like old addicting games concepts. I really can't figure out how to make an actual game, and it's starting to get on my nerves because I really want to learn this program, but I can't find tutorials in my language is what I'd probably describe it as. They just aren't making enough sense to me, and I don't know if it's from lack of effort. I've been putting in a lot of time into this, but I guess I just got to put more time in. Sometimes it's going to be that way. So if you know anybody who's better at tutorials or, things for Godot, I'm waiting for Bracket to just release more and more. That was probably the best full diagnostic one because the fact he chaptered it out meant that when I needed to steal code later, like every time I need to flip a sprite and I forget that code, I just run over to his video and I grab it. But I just wish there was some way, like a dummy's guide, where somebody who wants to rewrite that documentation. Honestly, I just kind of went on a rant about how I wish the documentation was easier to read. I cut that out because it was kind of wild. But I just really want to get good at this, and I guess I'm just frustrated by how hard it's been. And if you're somebody who knows more than me, which is probably anybody who's tried for longer than I have, and have any suggestions on people I should go watch that really can help me. I'm trying to make a 2D game. I want it to be simple. I can't do art. I'm bad at that. I can't code at this moment. I'm learning, and I can conceptualize things, but I just can't get them to hit paper. I fail to develop any skill once it hits paper. I just it falls apart under me. So I don't know. This has just been my experience. If you're thinking about getting into game dev, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be ready to give some time and dedicated hours, more like you would with school and studying. Don't just I mean, I guess you can't just fiddle around with it, but I don't know if you'll be as successful, but maybe you're smarter than me and have a better time. So any comments or questions, leave them down below. I'd be happy to answer them. I don't think I'll be able to help you out with your projects, but I will commiserate with you if you're having troubles as well. So thank you all for watching, and peace.